Great, thank you. Sarah Tober.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Sarah Toper. I am the Deputy Director of La Plata Economic Development Alliance. Our mission is to create a vibrant and resilient economy from the recruitment, retainment, and growth of business by fostering public and private partnerships and preserving our quality of life. We started getting involved with the workforce housing challenge, if you will, a couple of years ago as it became clear that industry and companies here were having a hard time recruiting and or retaining employees because of the lack of housing access here in La Plata County. So everything from rental to for sale product. And so we have a robust workforce housing program here at the Alliance, and that includes standing the La Plata Regional Housing Alliance back up and supporting the administration of it. It includes the Catalyst Fund, which we've had a webinar on that related to the pre-development costs of workforce housing projects. And then the third prong to that is our rental assistance program in partnership with First Southwest Bank. So we're so grateful to have Jen Lopez with Project Moxie here and Lisa Bloomquist with Homes Fund because they truly are our area housing experts and navigating some really challenging landscapes within state funds and resources, as well as deed restrictions, especially with the new Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac standards. So really happy that they're here to help us walk through what we need here locally. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Can you see one slide or two? Two? No, one?
Two.
Two, okay. You can always count on me doing this wrong. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to forward a couple slides. Do you want to, Sarah, you kind of covered this. Is there anything else you want to say about the Alliance? No? Great. We're going to jump in. We've got a pretty packed agenda and 3 different speakers. I will try very hard to speak more slowly. My name is Jen Lopez. I'm grateful to be here in Durango. I've been here for on and off for 30 years. I have a background in affordable housing consulting. This will be my 24th year. And I'm a Fort Lewis grad, and it's just a great pleasure to always work in my own community. So I'm glad you all could join us today. We have a small team at Project Moxie, and so you'll meet some of the other folks, and we have several of our team members on the call today. What we want to do today is cover a little bit about the market context for sale housing. And we're going to talk about below market for sale housing strategies. We also are going to talk about accessing mortgages and training, and especially from the perspective of folks who speak Spanish and being culturally sensitive and appropriate in making sure that all of our community members understand what programs are available. And then we're going to have the Homes Fund provide us information on all the programs that they manage currently and some of what they think will happen in 2024. We will be very tight on questions and answers. You are welcome to put your questions in the chat as we go. We will do our best to make time at the end of the session to take some live questions. And again, this is just the beginning of education in the community. There'll be more opportunities in 2024. Very quickly, this is the hardest and worst market we've ever seen, nationally and locally. And a lot of that has to do with not having enough housing being built for over a decade, and then all the cost increases that happened during COVID. So it's an extremely challenging time right now in La Plata County to build new housing. And we hear this all the time. And I won't spend a lot on this slide because I think we all know it, but this is part of our market context. Quickly, when we say the word affordable housing, what do we mean? Affordable housing as a term means no one will spend more than 30 to 33% of their gross income for rent or for a mortgage. Oftentimes when we use the term affordable housing, people think of federal programs and sort of the housing and urban development model or public housing. And over the last several years, I think, especially in La Plata County, we recognize, no, actually, affordable housing impacts a significant number of folks in our community. And so we have a few more ways we want to illustrate this.
Yeah.
So here's a one slide. This is a national slide that just kind of shows, you know, different income brackets and who might need help with affordable housing. Oops, there we go. And then here is actually the area median income charts for La Plata County. If you've never heard that term before, it's the federal government looks at incomes annually and decides who needs help with federal programs to access housing. But this is just an example of, you know, starting at 50% or but right in the middle of the incomes in our community for a household of 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the way up to what we now consider sort of rural resort incomes and high-end workforce incomes. So you can easily make 150, 160,000 in La Plata County and need assistance, given how much home prices have increased. This table is created through the Homes Fund formulas, and it shows if you're a family of one at 50% of the median income, you can afford a $93,000 home. So again, just a quick illustration of how we sort of understand how different incomes can afford different home prices. A few more definitions. We want to make sure people understand what we're saying when we talk about housing in our community. We talk a lot about workforce housing. And again, that's because who needs help with housing has grown tremendously in the last 10 years, but especially since COVID. So it means, you know, folks who work here can't live here. That's a big challenge. Middle income is another term. Community housing is a term we'll hear that just talks about people who are local. So sometimes we're trying to figure out how to prioritize local folks versus people moving into our community. Anyway, and then in general, we usually refer to all of these different definitions as below market housing. So how do we create housing in our community that the market can't do? And so we have to subsidize it or get creative in order to create lower cost housing and home ownership. I try to keep this very simple. There's really just two ways that we create below market housing. We're either providing funds to a development, and because we provided either below market funds or grants, the development costs are lower, therefore the price or the rent can be lower. Or we're subsidizing a household. We're saying this household wants to buy a home, and again, Lisa will talk about this in great detail. Here's some mortgage assistance so you can buy a home. So we talk a lot, it can be very complex, but I like this slide because it actually is fairly simple. In order to create for sale housing in La Plata County, we have to have strategies. And again, we have a strategic plan that was done with the Economic Alliance. And it's being updated right now. And that plan really reflects what the vision of this community is, where we have resources, where there's capacity, political will, et cetera. And we'll talk about some of those strategies in a minute. And then stepping way back, we think we have a mix of folks with us today, maybe some local governments, maybe folks who are interested in buying a home, and also potential development partners. And there really is just a handful of ways that we can make a for sale housing affordable. So we can either work with land and we get it free or discounted. That's a huge help. Or we get infrastructure money, right? So we get grants or low cost loans that offset the cost to put in our water, sewer, and our roads. I will say that infrastructure grants and loans is fairly new at the state level. And I think there's a lot of excitement here locally to access those funds, but because they're so new, we're still trying to figure it out how they work. And then the most common way that we create below market housing is we go for federal or state grants, and we just ask for, right now, 50 to 60,000 per unit to just decrease the cost of development. And I've got a slide on that here in a minute. And you can see how you might be stacking a number of these strategies in order to get to certain price points. Fee waivers are common. The city of Durango's done that for a long time. But that's where throughout the development process, a local government waives fees for delivery of homes at a certain price point to help offset the cost for that developer. Density, we talk about it all the time. This is a hard one to do because There's a lot of challenges to creating dense housing, but at the end of the day, if you can provide more units on a piece of land, your costs are going to go down. The final strategy I want to talk about, we haven't done as much here, but I've seen it very successfully in New Mexico, is that when you build out a subdivision, you very intentionally cross-subsidize. What that means is you're building more expensive homes around the perimeter with the views, and then you're building less expensive homes in the middle, and you're using the overall development budget to allow different price points throughout the subdivision. This is a really nice way to integrate community, and it works best when you have scale. So think of a Three Springs scale or a Twin Buttes scale. And so, and this model works really well in New Mexico because they don't have a lot of funding. So they just, they use their own development subdivisions to subsidize the below market units. A lot of people are asking right now, how do you find the money to subsidize for sale housing? And so this one's hard. I have a lot of respect for folks who do for sale housing. And the reason for that is the federal government doesn't really subsidize it very much. And so in our country, most of our affordable housing programs are funded by the federal government, which hasn't really updated their programs and initiatives for 30 years. And so it hasn't kept up with the need. And so this is probably the hardest thing to do, is to create for sale affordable housing. Rental housing is different. There's a lot more funding available for rental housing at the federal level, and that's why often communities spend more time talking about that, because there's just more resource. Now, we're lucky in Colorado because there has been a huge bump in state resources for housing over the last 6-7 years, and we're seeing more funds for sale housing. It's still not nearly enough, but at least there's a movement and an interest in helping subsidize for sale housing at the state level. And again, the DOLA infrastructure programs, there's been a couple of them rolled out, are very popular. And I hope that there's some legislation that make them permanent. But right now, they're, I believe, time limited. So something we should all think about. And then the third bucket is the community second mortgage programs, which the Homes Fund has been doing since 2007, 2008, 2009, quite a while. And that's a really popular method for creating for sale housing. And again, Lisa will walk us through that. Here's just an example using all those different strategies. So you want to build a townhome for $550,000, which is crazy. It's very expensive, but that's kind of entry level right now with costs in our community. And then maybe you go to the state and they give you 40,000 a unit. So it's now a 510,000. And then you work with Lisa's team and you're able to get a $100,000 mortgage. Now your total purchase price is 410. So this is the layering, the stacking that we do. And of course, the more money you have, the lower you can go with that home price. But real basically how we try to create these for sale opportunities. Few other resources available. Oftentimes we'll work with the private sector. So there are employer-funded mortgage programs in the community with the Homes Fund. Maybe we get a piece of land from an employer. This is becoming more and more common as the housing crisis increases. And then public sector strategies, obviously we see a lot of activity right now with the Regional Housing Alliance and local governments. And what we're seeing governments look at, and school districts and other public entities, how do you repurpose existing assets that you don't need anymore? How do we, how can we kind of activate those for housing? And then always we're needing to create public will so that we can change the way that our land use programs work, so that we can create housing opportunities in towns, right? Where there's access to water and sewer. We have incentives to help development partners do this kind of housing. One is the Catalyst Fund, which is run by the Economic Development Alliance. And then when you have nonprofit partners who develop, you want to provide support to them to scale. Elevation Community Land Trust has just come into the community in the last year, and I know that they're looking at a number of ways to try to scale some for sale housing. And then create a public funding source. So all communities right now who are actively pursuing more housing are looking at public funding sources. So we are too. You'll be hearing more about that in 2024. that was my piece. I'm going to hand it over. Betty, I'll give an introduction to the Community Investment Alliance, but want to make sure you're still with us and able to access. Hey, Betty. So the Community Investment Alliance is another organization that I'm involved in. It's a nonprofit that was created in 2021 to facilitate resources to communities that are basically less likely to access state funds, but who are most impacted by COVID. And so we work on services, programming, food access, housing, and homelessness. Our executive directors in Aurora, but down here often. Our board chairs up north, and then this year we started a fellowship program. And I'll just give a little bit on this, Betty, and then you should introduce yourself. But we want to help facilitate a more diverse workforce in housing. And we also want to understand what communities need with housing, and felt the best way to do that was to invite community leaders to work with us for a year and learn about housing programs and initiatives. We were lucky to find Betty, who's here local and bilingual, and she's our first fellow. So Betty, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you, Jen. And good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you taking time out of your days and for having me here. Like Jen explained, I am the new housing fellow in the local community. I am just really happy to be able to work with, community members, and especially having a mortgage lender experience and background that I can, facilitate, certain pieces that, are very much needed right now. And so what I'm trying to do is just establish, what are the housing needs for Spanish speakers in La Plata County? And then, of course, identifying the resources to help connect those resources back to you guys. And so, again, I think there's some, bridging of gaps that need to be done. And going into the next slide, I just, want to jump into, community access equals equity. And what that means to me is that I essentially want to facilitate access to cultural housing information in the community. And also, ensuring that this information within the Hispanic community for purchasing a first home involves understanding the community's needs, preferences, and again, the potential barriers. There are some strategies that, we have to consider. One of them that I've been seeing is the fact that we're looking at cultural sensitivity and language accessibility. Being a mortgage lender, I've seen that there aren't very many real estate agents or other brokers or lenders in the area that are able to provide this language in Spanish, or for the matter of any other language. And so just making sure that there are interpreters involved, but again, just making sure that we have that one-on-one connection, that, these questions are being answered and people are being helped and in their, heart language. So it's just more of what I want to make sure is accessible. And then also creating that sensitivity of cultural awareness. And again, within that Hispanic community. The community outreach, I'm working on, collaborating with local Hispanic community organizations, cultural centers, and even churches to reach out a broader audience. So working with the Good Food Collective, talking to compañeros, people that are already within helping local members. Also, hosting workshops, seminars, and, providing information sessions within community centers. So just providing that guidance for home buying process. We also want to use the technology, whether that's like a leverage of social media platforms popular within, Hispanic community, whether that's WhatsApp, and how we can share that information, and engage those potential home buyers. We also want to develop a user-friendly Spanish language website. So again, people can access this information for home buying process and mortgage options and resources. The other aspect is the partners and realtors and lenders. Like I mentioned, I just want to make sure, having people, have access to these interpreters so they can have, clear communication and expectations if they do go into a purchase transaction, or, start that purchase loan transaction, that they are being, they can address specific concerns within that client and their expectations. Also, the financial literacy programs. We want to offer programs that are tailored to the Hispanic community, covering topics like budgeting, credit building, and again, their mortgage options. And this would, provide resources for down payment assistance, programs and grants that might be available for those first-time home buyers. Legal assistance. So one of the things that I want to make sure that people know is, again, any legal concerns or considerations related to home buying. For example, understanding their contracts and what entails in that closing process. Providing access to bilingual, legal resources or workshops to ensure a clear understanding of rights and responsibilities that comes with that home purchase. Also collaborating with local government agencies, working with the housing authorities to promote home ownership programs that are available to the community and advocate for policies that facilitate, affordable housing within the Hispanic population. Even sharing community testimonials. So sharing those success stories within individuals in our local community and families that have, successfully purchased their first homes. We're also looking at accessible financial tools. So, providing tools and calculators in Spanish to help potential home buyers estimate, their mortgage payments, down payments, and other financial aspects of home ownership, and also assisting with regular follow-ups and support. So again, my role is just to establish ongoing communication channels to address questions, concerns, even after, information sessions. So just providing that support through the entire, home buying process. And, I'll continually assess and adjust, strategies based on the community's feedback and needs. Building the trust and relationships within the Hispanic community is crucial, for this effective communication and support throughout that home buying journey. Going into the next slide is the challenges and barriers when it comes to the Hispanic community and purchasing their first home. There's various challenges and cultural barriers that the individuals may encounter. It's important to recognize and address these factors to ensure that it's more inclusive and supportive home buying process. Some of these challenges and barriers, would include simple as, that language barrier. So again, there's the limited proficiency in English that may create, these challenges when you're navigating the complex process of buying a home, understanding the legal documents and contracts. Most of these are only offered in English. And so, try to make sure there's no misunderstanding and that it's properly, translated. There's also the credit and financial literacy. So again, if there's limited access to the financial education, that may result in like a lower financial literacy, making it challenging for individuals to understand, their credit scores or mortgages and other financial aspects of buying a home. And then also like trust and banking habits. So, there's cultural differences in banking practices that may, affect the trust of financial institutions, but some individuals may prefer, informal financial arrangements, or there may be, distrust from formal banking systems. So there's also, fear of discrimination. So there's a lot of, issues with immigration status or ethnicity that may even prevent these individuals from assistance or, participating in home buying process. The other is the documentation challenges. So again, there's extensive requirements that can be overwhelming, and especially for those people that are either, non-traditional employment or, income sources. There's also, family dynamics, but again, just trying to break those, barriers and fully understand, what needs to take place for us to fully understand, that family situation. And there's also, the lack of representation. So again, what we've been finding is individuals within the real estate industry may, lead to a lack of culturally competent guidance and support. So again, making sure that we have, right resources in place to help these individuals overcome these obstacles. And then again, just making sure that we have the government program awareness. There's a lack of awareness of programs that are available and initiatives designed to assist these first-time home buyers. And, that may hinder, their access to these resources. There's cultural expectations, traditional expectations around homeownership and familial responsibilities may differ. So this could also impact their, the individual's priorities or decision making. And then if the other aspect is the location preference. So cultural preferences for some specific neighborhoods or communities may limit options and, impact the housing affordability as well. But by addressing these challenges, it requires a multifaceted approach. This may involve providing resources in multiple languages, offering financial education programs, fostering cultural competence within the real estate industry, and promoting inclusive policies and practices. Government agencies or, nonprofit organizations and businesses can collaborate to create a more accessible and culturally sensitive environment for the Hispanic community in the home buying process. And going into the next slide is listening to the community's key. So in this housing fellow role, just having that open door policy that, people can come to me with any type of issues and, trying to, plug them into the right, nonprofit or, the right resource so we can overcome those challenges. But, listening to the needs and concerns of the Hispanic community is crucial. And it's a crucial aspect of my role as a housing fellow and as a local mortgage lender. This involves actively seeking feedback, understanding cultural nuisances, and addressing specific challenges that people are faced, and being able to effectively listen and respond to those needs and concerns of the Hispanic population by doing community service and conducting these surveys within the community or the Hispanic community is to gather, their insights and their specific challenges, preferences, and their priorities related to homeownership, and to ensure that these surveys are both, available not only in English, but in Spanish. Also offering focus groups and organize these focus groups discussions to delve deeper into these specific issues and gather data. This will allow, community members to share their experiences and perspectives in a more interactive setting. The community, events and workshops, the way that, we want to do these is having attendance and organize these community events and workshops to engage directly with the individuals and use these opportunities to listen to their concerns, answer questions, and provide information about the home buying process, and then collaborate with other community leaders. So again, offering and establish partnerships with influential, community leaders and organizations. And these leaders can provide, valuable insights as well with the community needs and act as intermediaries to facilitate communication and providing that cultural liaison. So again, just trying to make sure that we have, that can help bridge communication gaps and build the trust. Having language accessibility, and also having things not only in English but in Spanish, which include marketing materials, educational resources, and also customer supportive systems in place. This helps overcome language barriers and ensure inclusivity. And like I mentioned, this social media engagement, leveraging these platforms to connect with the community, monitor discussions and address any concerns that we may offer. And so let me see here. There's also, those regular check-ins, but what I want to make sure that I end on that is that, by actively listening and responding to the needs of the Hispanic community, I can build trust, foster collaboration, and, tailor services to better meet their unique challenges faced by individuals seeking their first home. The next slide, empowering through education.
Betty,
Yes.
I'm going to slow you down.
Okay, thank you.
Oh my goodness, you have so much to cover. I think the message that you're giving to the audience is that this is a really exciting process and project, and it's got a lot of work. We got a lot of work to do. And so we're just so grateful, Betty, that you're with us to help us do this and start to meaningfully, provide access to housing resources to folks who speak Spanish in the community. We only have a couple minutes, Betty, so I wanted to get to sort of how to get a hold of you. Is that okay?
Absolutely. So the best way to get a hold of me, I am available for one-on-one support. I can do, again, phone calls, or I can meet in person. Also reach me via WhatsApp or email me. But again, my biggest concern is, providing that educational piece and help people navigate, certain challenges and barriers, and, trying to find a solution. But that would be the best way is how I can help you is just doing those one-on-one consultations and, just trying to figure out, what the next steps are. So thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you, Betty, and thank you, Beatrice, for being with us today, to our partner from Good Food Collective, and helping us to start to do that engagement. This is not a one and done. We'll have more training sessions in the spring, either through the Alliance or either Alliance. There's 2 alliances on the call, but there'll be more of these trainings to come. We want to make sure that we give Lisa from the Homes Fund enough time to talk about the work that they're doing right now and what we can look forward to in 2024 with their programs. Let me stop sharing here. Oops. You make sure, Lisa, that you
Yeah.
can share your
It looks like I can't share my screen
Yeah.
quite yet. If that could be
Yeah.
adjusted, that would be wonderful.
There you go. Thanks, Lisa. And please
Thank you.
introduce yourself properly. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So good afternoon, buenos tardes. My name is Lisa Bloomquist. I'm the Executive Director for Homes Fund. And Homes Fund is a nonprofit organization. That means that we have a mission. We're not trying to make money, we're trying to serve the community. And our mission is to provide the educational and financial tools that people need to reach homeownership. And I'm going to tell you how we do that and the programs and services that we have. We are based in Durango, right in downtown Durango on 9th and 2nd. And we serve the 5 counties of Region 9. So that means we serve La Plata County, Montezuma, Archuleta, San Juan, and Dolores counties. Okay. We do not go over the border into New Mexico. We are a Colorado organization. I'm going to go fairly fast through these slides to allow for time for any sort of questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. So the primary programs that Homes Fund offers are homebuyer education, housing counseling, and mortgage assistance programs, and I'm going to go through each of those. We also have a manufactured and mobile home financing program where homes that are not affixed to land, so let's say a manufactured home that is in a park, we can provide some financing, so loans for those purchases at lower interest rates than a lot of the lenders that are out there, or often these homes are difficult to finance. You couldn't just go to a bank and finance them, or it would be very difficult, or there would be predatory terms. And so we have a program that helps people get into this type of home ownership without having those predatory terms. We also have a program where we provide pre-development financing to developers of affordable housing. We haven't been doing much of that, but happy to entertain ideas if anyone has them. So the basic problem that we're facing is one that Jen really touched on, skyrocketing home prices, especially since 2020. And these are just graphs from the Colorado Real Estate Network showing the skyrocketing home prices. I'm sure that we all know it intuitively, but to see that graph go up is really quite scary. In the city of Durango, it's the same story, but you just tack on an additional $200,000 per home, and that's the story that we're working with. So a little bit more information about Homes Fund's homebuyer education classes. It is a fairly long and in-depth class. The classes go from 8:30 to 4:30. They're typically held on Saturdays. We hold monthly classes up at Fort Lewis College. And then we also have additional classes in sometimes over in Pagosa Springs at the Ross Aragon Community Center, sometimes over in Cortez. We're doing one this Saturday up in Silverton. I think it might be our first ever class in Silverton. Sometimes we go over to Bayfield. And in those classes, we go over the pros and cons of homeownership, the pros and cons of renting. We go over budgeting, we go over credit, how to improve your credit, working with a realtor, working with a lender, what different loan products mean, what the pros and cons of various loan products are. We go over the process of getting insurance. We talk about getting a home inspection, that post closing, what to do after you buy the house. All of that information is covered. The class itself is free. There is a workbook fee. There's a pretty in-depth workbook, and we charge $15 for the workbook. Workbooks can be shared by various household members, and if you are in a financial situation where that fee causes a hardship, please let us know and we can waive that. If you would like to attend a class, please register on our website. It's homesfund.org. That's HOMESFUND.org. And we would love to see you at one of the classes. The second step is attending a housing counseling session. And we have 4 HUD certified housing counselors on staff. And one of our housing counselors, typically either Sharon or Matt, would be the first person you would see. Will take a really in-depth look at your personal budget and your personal finances so that we could tell you personally rather than generally how much of a home you can afford, what type of loan might be best for you, what range you should be looking at, what you can personally do to improve your credit and improve your capacity to purchase a house. So the housing counseling sessions are free. We do charge for pulling a credit report, and that is approximately, I want to say it's $27 per person. We have that information if you apply to us. I'm happy to get you that information. If you're already working with a lender and they've already pulled your credit, we could just use that credit report if necessary. Then our mortgage assistance program, I also call it our down payment assistance program. I use those terms entirely interchangeably. If I say mortgage assistance, it means down payment assistance. If I say down payment assistance, it means mortgage assistance. So basically what this is it's money to help bridge the gap between the low wages and high home prices. So as Jen was saying earlier with her example of a home that it costs, let's say $550,000 to build, and the state subsidizes up to $40,000, gets that price down to $510,000. That $100,000 to get the amount financed down to $410,000. If you remember her example, that would be Homes Fund's mortgage assistance program. And the amount of money available is up to 30% of a home's purchase price, up to $150,000. For households with incomes below 100% of area median income. And kind of again, referencing back to Jen's slide about area median income. And I actually think I have a slide down here earlier, or I'm sorry, a little bit later that has the area median income charts. But we're happy to go over with you what your household income is and whether or not you might qualify for that. For people who have household incomes above 100% area median income, but below 120% area median income, we have a program where we could offer our down payment assistance of up to 10% of the purchase price. And that's structured so you get a first mortgage loan for 80% of the purchase price, then a Homes Fund loan for 10%, and then you need to put in 10%. And then we have additional programs in partnership with the City of Durango, Fort Lewis College, and Purgatory, where employees of either Fort Lewis College or Purgatory have access to special programs. And then for the City of Durango program, that's available to anyone who is purchasing a home that is within the city limits. So here are those area median income AMI charts. So if your household income is below that green line, then you may be eligible for up to 30% of the home's purchase price, up to $150,000 in mortgage assistance. And then the other income limits are a bit higher, and those are listed below. So actually, before I go on to outcomes, I want to tell you a little bit about how the Homes Fund loans are structured. So you have two choices. You could either do a shared appreciation loan where it's at 0% interest, there are no monthly payments, but when you pay us, when you either sell or do a cash out refinance, or if you're no longer living in the property, then you, when you pay off your first mortgage, you also pay off us, and you pay us off with a proportional portion of the appreciation. So if we put in 12.3% of the purchase, then we will take 12.3% of the appreciation when you sell. Or if we put in 30%, then we'll take 30% of the appreciation when you sell. And we go over that pretty in depth when you go through the housing counseling sessions. We also have an option where you could do an amortizing loan for the mortgage assistance program, and that for that you would have monthly payments, and the interest rate would be 2.5% below your first mortgage interest rate. And I know that that's probably just confusing / too much information. We go over all of this very much in depth when we are working with clients. So our outcomes to date, over 370 families have used Homes Fund's mortgage assistance to buy a home. Over $12.8 million of mortgage assistance has been provided. 2,856 households have received homebuyer education. 1,900 households have received housing counseling. And of the people who have received our services, over 1,372 households have gone on to become homeowners in our area. And we are very proud of those outcomes. We also have partnerships with various organizations, including the City of Durango, Town of Bayfield, and Town of Ignacio for facilitating and administering their deed restriction programs. So in the City of Durango, there's the Animas City Park Overlook community and Mountain Trace townhomes. Within the Town of Bayfield, there's Cinnamon Heights and Pine River Commons. And in Ignacio, there is Rock Creek. Those are the names of the communities of the deed restricted properties that are in Southwest Colorado. We also partner and work very closely with the RHA, and we're also working with developers of affordable housing, including Elevation Community Land Trust, including the private developers who are working with the city through the Fair Share program, et cetera. So we're in the loop and trying to insert our assistance whenever possible. So so the people that we're helping, they're people from all walks of life, people who include teachers, nurses, mechanics, athletes, police officers, nonprofit employees, servers, managers, anyone you could really think of. If people make enough money to be able to get a mortgage, but they don't make enough money to be able to afford our high home prices in our area, those are Homes Fund's clients. And been working hard for over a decade to get people into affordable and sustainable home ownership. So that is what I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Lisa, that was so thorough. Great job. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm so grateful we have 10 minutes for questions. That was a lot of information. So if you have a question, you can just unmute and ask, or you can put it in the chat. Wait a few minutes. Again, as a reminder, the beginning of the session really kind of talked high level strategy for sale opportunities. And then Betty talked about work to increase services and understand the needs of our Spanish speakers. And Lisa talked about a very powerful set of programs to get homebuyers ready and to provide assistance financially. So we have a lot of really good infrastructure in this community.
You can also put your questions in the chat if you have any. Maybe the presentations were so thorough that there are no questions. Thank you so much, Lisa, Bernice. Really appreciate it.
These are recorded and they live on the La Plata Economic Development Alliance website. So if you want to review it or share it, the presentation will be up in a few days. And we anticipate, again, more of these sessions after the holidays. The Division of Housing is in charge of a lot of the new state funds for sale, and they'll be doing some engagement in the first quarter of 2024. So we're anxious and excited to hear if any of these programs will change at the state that might either help us or change the way that we approach for sale housing opportunities. But it's exciting to know there's going to be more funds for sale housing because it's desperately needed. We hope that if you have questions, but maybe don't want to share today, you'll reach out. Again, Beatrice or Betty shared her information, and Beatrice is a great resource here on with Good Food Collective. Obviously, Sarah Tober, you can find her through Economic Alliance, and Lisa Bloomquist is with the Homes Fund and has a website. So please reach out to any of us if you would like more information or another presentation or a different presentation for your community. I think Sarah Tober, we just wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you again for coordinating this, Jen, and appreciate all the speakers, appreciate everybody who attended. So we will give you a couple of minutes back in your day. And thank you again. Have a great day. Happy holidays.
Thank you.